Welcome to the deep dive. Today, we're tackling a role that's really, really critical if you want large, agile organizations to actually build the right things. We're talking about product management, specifically, how it works inside an Agile Release Train, or RT.
Yeah, it's a fascinating spot they occupy. And for our guide today, we're looking at insights from Rashad Tantoi's work. It's called Product Management in an Agile Release Train, Defining Value and Driving Success. Could be an article or maybe a presentation, but that's the core material.
Right. So our mission here is to really get into the weeds, unpack the main jobs product management has in an RT. We want to understand how they actually manage to bridge that gap between figuring out what customers truly need and then making sure the RT delivers, successful solutions.
And why should you care about this? Well, because product management is just fundamental if you want to navigate the complexities of scaled agile, like in an RT. They're the ones making sure all that technical effort, all the coding and building is actually pointed towards solutions that are, well, desirable, viable, and sustainable.
So not just building stuff, but building stuff that provides real value.
Exactly. Value to the market, value to the business. It's really where the big picture business strategy connects with the day-to-day execution happening on the train.
Okay, so let's dig into what the source material lays out. It kicks off with a pretty core definition, right? Product management in this RT world is like a bridge.
Yeah, a bridge between customer needs on one side and what the organization can actually do, its capabilities, on the other. Their job is defining solutions that hit those 3 points. Desirable for the customer, viable for the business, and sustainable to actually build and keep running.
And where they sit is interesting, too. The source puts them right at that intersection.
Business strategy and technical execution. They're not purely business, not purely tech, right in that crucial middle zone.
And they're not doing this alone, obviously. Who are their key partners inside the RT, according to the source?
It calls out 3 main ones. System architects, the tech visionaries, essentially. The release train engineer, or RTE, who's kind of the chief facilitator for the RT's processes. And the business owners, the folks representing the key business stakeholders.
Okay, so that partnership is vital.
Absolutely. Because their main goal, as the source puts it, is turning market opportunities into actual valuable products. And they do that by sort of synthesizing inputs from all those partners, business needs, customer wishes, and what's technically feasible. It's a constant balancing act.
That makes sense. It sets the scene really well. So, okay, what are the actual core responsibilities that come out of that definition? The first one the source mentions is exploring markets and users.
Yeah, you can kind of think of them as market detectives here, always gathering intelligence about the world outside the ART.
So how do they do that detective work? What activities does the source mention?
Well, it talks about conducting research, both primary, like directly talking to users, understanding their needs, and secondary, looking at broader market trends, what competitors are doing, that sort of thing.
So micro and macro views.
Exactly. And applying market segmentation, basically, grouping users with similar traits to understand different needs better. Also, identifying market rhythms.
Market rhythms, what's that about?
It's about recognizing patterns, like seasonal demand or maybe big industry events, things that influence when a feature might have the most impact, the timing.
Okay, so it's not just what, but when.
Yeah.
That's interesting.
Right, and the source also highlights using methods for deep user understanding, like lean UX ideas and journey mapping, really trying to visualize and step into the user's experience.
And why is all this exploration so important?
Well, the source frames it as the absolute foundation for all the product decisions that follow. It's how they make sure the RT is building stuff that solves real problems, addresses validated needs, not just, acting on internal assumptions or someone's pet idea.
Helps avoid building the wrong thing, basically.
Precisely. Avoids wasting all that effort on something nobody actually wants.
Okay, so they've got this understanding of the market, the users, what's next. The source talks about connecting with the customer. This sounds more direct than just research.
Yes, exactly. This is about direct engagement. And the source really emphasizes a shift in mindset here, getting away from just focusing on internal priorities and really centering everything on creating value for the customer. It requires a genuine customer-centric approach.
So how do they actually do that connection? Beyond the initial research, what techniques does the source mention?
It talks about things like really empathizing with the customer, using tools like personas, detailed profiles of fictional, typical users, and empathy maps, which help visualize what users are thinking, feeling, seeing, doing.
Trying to get inside their heads?
Sort of, yeah, and applying design thinking principles too, which really pushes you to deeply understand the problem and the user's context before you even start thinking about solutions.
And this isn't like a one-off activity, right?
No, absolutely not. The source stresses it has to be continuous involvement, engaging customers throughout the whole development process, constantly getting feedback as things are being built, not just at the very beginning.
Why is that continuous loop so valuable?
Well, in an agile world, it's huge. It lets product management check their assumptions regularly. They can refine feature ideas based on what real users are saying. And it massively reduces the risk of the already spending time building something that, ultimately misses the mark or isn't actually needed. It's like a built-in quality check on the value itself.
Okay, makes sense. So explored the market, connected with customers. The third big area is defining strategy, vision, and roadmaps, setting the course.
Absolutely. This is where they shape the direction. And the source mentions several key strategic artifacts they're responsible for creating. Things like the product vision, that clear, hopefully inspiring picture of where the product is heading, the product strategy, the overall approach for how they'll get there, and the product roadmap, which is more of a timeline showing the expected sequence of major features or capabilities.
And I guess that ties into PI planning too, program increment planning.
Exactly. That's where the near-term, detailed execution plan comes together. Product management's role here, as the source describes it, is really connecting the dots between the higher-level portfolio strategy, the big business goals, and what the ORT is actually going to execute on day-to-day, sprint-to-sprint.
So they're translating customer needs into concrete features the teams can build.
Precisely, into value-delivering features. And the source also mentions they play a role in fostering innovation, maybe by helping secure some budget for experiments or by bringing those external market insights back to spark new ideas within the teams.
What about the vision and roadmaps themselves? How important are they?
The source really highlights the vision. A compelling vision gives the whole RT clear direction and helps align everybody, teams, stakeholders, business owners, which is super critical during something as intense as PI planning.
And the roadmap, is that set in stone?
No, definitely not. The source emphasizes flexibility. Roadmaps give direction, sure, but they need to allow the RT to adapt when things change, new customer feedback, market shifts. The goal is to stay focused on delivering maximum value within, the budget and the constraints of their value stream, but being able to pivot when necessary. It's a guide, not a rigid plan.
Okay, got it.
Yeah.
Direction, but adaptable.
Yeah.
So we've covered market exploration, customer connection, strategic direction. What's the final piece? The source talks about from backlog management to value delivery. This sounds like where the rubber meets the road.
It really is. A big part of this is managing the RT backlog actively. This means actually creating the features that go into it. And the source notes these should ideally have clear hypotheses.
Hypotheses, like what they expect the feature to achieve.
Exactly. What benefit or outcome are they aiming for? Then, crucially, they prioritize those features, making sure the RT works on the most valuable things first.
And they accept the features when they're done, like a sign-off.
Yeah, basically signing off from a business or customer value perspective, making sure it meets the acceptance criteria. They also work with the system architects to support the architectural runway.
The runway. That's like the underlying tech needed for future features.
Right. Making sure those foundational pieces, often called enablers, get built alongside the business features so they don't hit roadblocks later. And of course, they participate actively in all the RT events, like PI planning, system demos, inspect, and adapt workshops.
Okay, so managing the backlog is key. But the source seems to emphasize something bigger. Delivering value.
Yes, it states that delivering value is product management's core responsibility. It's the ultimate goal, and this mainly happens through the continuous delivery pipeline.
So not just done in the backlog, but actually out there.
Out there, released to customers. The source stresses making sure the solution is truly complete from the customer's viewpoint, and also enabling the downstream team's operations support so they're ready for what's been released.
And here's the part I found really interesting that the source explicitly calls out.
The measuring part.
Yeah, measuring business outcomes. It's not enough to just ship the feature. They need to validate if it actually achieved the intended business benefits. Did it move the needle?
Right. That's a huge point the source makes. And sometimes that means coordinating across multiple RTs if a solution involves work from different trains.
That focus on outcomes over just outputs feels like a really critical distinction.
It absolutely is. It ties everything back to the why. Is the technical work actually creating the intended business results? It ensures the RT is delivering real impact, not just, more code.
So wrapping this up, we've journeyed through this really multifaceted role of product management in an RT, using the insights from Rashad Tandowi's work.
Yeah, we started with them basically being market detectives, really digging into user needs.
Right, and then building on that by connecting deeply and continuously with actual customers, gathering that crucial feedback.
hmm Then moving into setting the direction, crafting the vision, the strategy, those flexible roadmaps that link the big picture goals to the RT's execution plan, especially during PI planning.
And finally, bringing it all together by managing that RT backlog and really driving value delivery through the pipeline, making sure solutions don't just get shipped, but they actually land well and, crucially, achieve the desired results.
It seems crystal clear from the source, doesn't it? Product management is just indispensable in an RT. They are that vital connection, making sure all the technical effort is pointed directly at real customer needs and the business objectives. That's what leads to successful products that actually matter.
Yeah, and hopefully understanding this role gives you listening a much clearer picture of how value gets identified, planned out, and finally delivered in these big scaled agile setups like an RT.
It really highlights that blend. You need market insight, customer empathy, strategic thinking, and then the practical oversight of execution, and importantly, measurement.
So thinking about everything we discussed in the source material, particularly that strong emphasis on measuring business outcomes. The idea that success isn't just checking features off a list, but actually proving they delivered the intended benefits.
Yeah.
What does that intense focus on outcomes really tell you about how success is truly defined for product management within this ART model? Something to think about.